Hey, welcome today to the Coastline Podcast. This is our opportunity to share with you the stories of our church family. People with the past, people who've made mistakes, people who have regrets, people who've learned incredibly valuable life lessons. It's all about God taking people's story and redeeming it for His glory. So we're going to get honest, we're going to get real, we're going to get vulnerable, and it's going to be transparent. So join us today on this episode of our Coastline Podcast.
Hi, Coastline fam, and welcome back to another episode of the Coastline Connections podcast. And today is a face, one of our favorite people that lead here at Coastline, specifically lead our children. It is our children's pastor, Amy Ryland.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, good. I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Well, your husband was first up to bat. He took this chair a few weeks ago, a few episodes ago with Pastor Aaron. And I'm excited to have you follow up after him because I love the way that he told your guys' story. Now, you have your own stories, right? Before meeting each other. And then you certainly have your own version of even living life together, like his side versus your side. Even the way you met, or even the way, you know what I mean, you raise kids and all that stuff. So I am excited to get your follow-up version of those.
We have been together for more than half of my life. So I feel like all of our stories are so intertwined because we met so early on in life.
We'll get to this, but so how old were you when you met him?
I was a senior in high school.
And so
18.
18, and how many years have you guys been married now?
We have been married we've been together for 23 years now. Gosh. But we've been married for 19 years.
Okay. So. Don't you love saying that you've been with him more in your life than without him?
Yes.
That's such a victory.
I know all of my 20s, all my 30s, and now into my 40s with just him.
Okay, so before we get into getting to know who you were as a kid and all the steps that got you here to helping us raise our kiddos here at Coastline. Few icebreakers for you. One of my favorite things about you is that you are a sports fanatic, specifically Padres fanatic. But you love sports in general, like you so much that you actually listen to sports talk radio.
Yes. If I am in the car, what is on is sports talk radio. Almost all, especially during Padres season. If it's in the morning, it's Ben and Woods. In the afternoon, it's Gwen and Chris.
Has it been like that your whole life? I mean, like, have you always loved sports like this? Or
well, I have always loved sports. My dad was big into football and baseball, and so sports have always been. I remember listening to him with my dad, but I would say as Hudson found a love for baseball and for the Padres, our love as a family grew, and so we just started listening to all of the things Padres.
Okay, so what is your favorite Padres jersey of all the ones they've ever had over the years?
They've had some good ones, and it's kind of funny because when I was in college at Point Loma, they were blue and orange, and then we moved back to Arizona, and then we came back, and now they're brown and gold. And I know the brown and gold was from like long time ago. Yeah. And then they changed. Why they changed to navy and orange, I'm not sure. But now back to the brown and gold. But none of those are my favorite. My favorite is actually the City Connect ones because they're just so fun. And I feel like they did a really good job embodying San Diego and like the fun aspect to it, the cultural aspect to it.
So. Yeah, like that mint green, the bright pink, whatever that mix is. It's funny you say, like, I don't know why they changed outfits so much. Jerseys, whatever.
Love it.
I'm always like, I wonder if the wives of these marketing people were getting in their ears, like, you need to change it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's probably a money thing, but whatever.
Or that too. Okay, and then so finally, if you could make your dream Padres roster with only 3 players, but literally of all time who ever existed, who would your top 3 be?
From the Padres, like from the history of just the Padres, or 3 all-time favorite like baseball players in general?
Padres. Unless you're straying and going to... Is there a Dodger in there I should ask you about?
No. But I did grow up in Arizona, so there was, through my high school, Randy Johnson, the pitcher, was huge. But no, sticking to Padres, just for like, I love Tony Gwynn for the whole San Diego Diego aspect of it, the loyalty that he showed to the city. He could have gone anywhere with a lot more money, and he chose San Diego. And he was a big bat to ball guy, and just, it didn't matter. Even as a big guy, it wasn't about hitting home runs. It was about consistency. So definitely Tony Gwynn. My current favorite player is Manny Machado. So I would, of course, have Manny Machado because I just love how he carries the team most of the season, puts the team on his back, and he's a baller. He makes plays that shouldn't be made. So
That's fun. That's fun to watch. Yeah.
And then my third, right now I feel like I would want to go with a pitcher, and I really feel like Michael King is just such a grounded person. I just love how he builds up his teammates. Actually, no, I take it back.
You can take it back.
I take it back.
Takesy backsies.
For the same reason of Michael King, but I think because he's not pitching right now, Joe Musgrove.
Oh,
yeah. He'll be back. But same, he also chose San Diego and is loyal to San Diego and does such good things for the city. And so he's probably, but both of them, Michael King and Joe Musgrove, they're just so grounded people, and they build up their teammates so well.
That's like rare these days, especially in professional. That's really cool.
know.
And look at you choosing two newer generation Padres rather than going with some, like the whole,
I know, like
favorite
Trevor
pitcher,
Hoffman. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, very classic, but also I feel like I'm a not newer Padres fan, but living in San Diego and just seeing my kids become Padres fans has really emphasized my love for them, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. That's super fun. All right. Well, let's go back to little Amy. Were you born and raised in Arizona? I know that you lived there for a big part of your life. Where were you originally born?
I have gone back and forth from California to Arizona. So I was born in California.
Where?
In Upland, California.
Where is that? Northern?
It's 2 hours north, right by Ontario Airport.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of nestled in the hills.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
So I lived there my first 11 years of life. And then we moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And I lived there for all my junior high and high school years. And then I went to college at Point Loma. So I came back to San Diego, to California. And then after I graduated, moved back to Arizona. We lived in Scottsdale for a little bit, but then we lived in Prescott, Arizona. And then 5 years after that, we moved back to San Diego. So I've kind of flip-flopped.
Yeah, between
California,
the two.
Arizona, California, Arizona.
How was that moving at 11 years old, leaving all your friends that you've known and all that? Was that what was that, 5th grade for you-ish?
Well, my mom has told me, well, actually, I do remember this. I kicked down our for sale sign and then thinking that now I know better that it's on the MLS website and stuff. But to me as a kid, it was like, if my for sale sign is gone, nobody knows my house is for sale. So it was a tough adjustment because I had lived in my same house almost my entire life. And so moving to Arizona was difficult, but I don't know. We got involved in a church and a community really fast. And so it was okay. But the thought of leaving everything, it's a little rough.
And I know that softball was a huge part of your life growing up. So at that point, had you been on a team or did you fall in love with that sport once you were in Arizona?
So I had played rec all in California, but when I moved to Arizona, rec is just not as competitive in Arizona as it was in California. And so very quickly we got onto a travel team. So I started playing travel at 11 years old in Arizona and did it ever since.
And that that almost took over essentially what you wanted to be. Did you, when you were going in high school, were you thinking about pursuing softball in college or pursuing that even possibly beyond?
Definitely when you're playing travel ball and people are seeing your potential as you are getting older and they start talking about college, I feel like once I got into high school, I was like, no, I want to play in college. And so I had a youth pastor who had gone to Point Loma, had loved Point Loma, and he was like, they have a softball team. I'll take you out to visit with my youth group. I'll take you out to visit and just introduce you to the school, maybe introduce you to the coaches, and if you are interested. So as a sophomore in high school, I went and visited Point Loma.
Was that your first time to San Diego?
That was my first time, not to San Diego, but to the Point.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had done camping here a lot at Santa Leo and at Campland on the Bay. We had camped here, but as in an introduction into college, it was the only college I really checked out. And it was, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I want to go here. I want to play here. And Point Loma was really unique in that they don't have to recruit outside of California because they have such a desirable campus. And so they don't have to recruit outside of California. People come to them. People want to play. Even though it's not a Division I school, people want to play for them because of what they offer as a campus. And so they weren't actually recruiting in Arizona, but I had a coach who kind of introduced me to the coach and said, you should take a look at her.
Yeah.
So
planted that seed. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
They recruited me out of Arizona even when they weren't recruiting.
How was middle school and high school life like for you? Were you a very play by the rule girl? You know, I feel like you might be.
Yes. Yes. I am definitely a play by the rule kind of person. I didn't want to ruffle too many feathers. I feel like from a very young age, I would set goals and I knew what my goals were. And I had parents and youth leaders who really built me up as a person and surrounded me with amazing accountability, and just family who really poured in and cared for me, that I didn't really push boundaries too much. I mean, typical, yes, did I get in trouble a couple times? Yes, there was a rogue softball party here and there where I got in trouble drinking. But after that, I was like, I don't like getting in trouble, so I won't. Yeah. I won't do things to get me in trouble.
You met Will when you were a senior in high school. And what I love about this is when he told this story, and I'm waiting for your version of it, he had to preface it like, this is not scandalous. I'm just going to say that up front. It's going to sound scandalous, but wait till the end. Listen to the whole story. So I would love to hear at the point. I mean, because that's pretty cool early on in life to meet the man that you were going to marry at such a young age when you are still in high school. I don't know if you knew it then or whatever, but I'm like, what a gift that is. Mm-hmm. So we have heard his version again a couple episodes back. Pastor Aaron interviews Will on this Coastline Connections. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go watch it. It's just it's a beautiful episode in so many ways. I know that when you walked, it was one of those things for him. When you walked in a room, he was like, stop everything. Who is that? So I'm curious if you even noticed him, when you walked into the room, but take me back to the day that you met Will.
So he laughs because when we first met, apparently he had long hair, long hair, when he first came over to our church. So the reason why he says it's not scandalous, I promise it's not scandalous, is I was a senior in high school. And he had come over in February of my senior year. So I had 3 months to graduate. And he had come over as one of our new youth leaders from a different church with a new youth pastor. So technically for 3 months, he was my youth leader, one of my youth leaders, but we're only 3.5 years apart in age. And we never dated until after I graduated. Actually, the rule was we couldn't go out on a date. We knew we kind of were interested in each other, but we couldn't go out on a date until after I was attending high school camp, because as I was a graduating senior, you can still go to high school camp.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had already signed up for high school camp. And so our pastor said, you guys cannot go out on a date until after high school camp. And so high school camp ended at noon on a Friday, and we went out at 5 o'clock on that Friday.
Stop it.
Yeah. So
I want to get up to that point.
I was going to say, but it's funny because when he first came, he had long hair. Apparently, a couple months in, he cut his hair off, and that's when I noticed him. And I was like, what? He's like, you didn't notice me until I had short hair.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
Sorry.
Okay, no, he kind of does have long hair anyways, right? It's always like shoulder length, right? But was it like much long? Would you
was
mean like
long.
longer?
Like
Okay, so
I would
like
say
mid-chest
longer
or
than
something.
even mine right now.
Okay.
But he changes hairstyle. Like now that I know him for, over 2 decades, I'm like, the man changes hairstyles all the time. It goes short, long, short, long. So.
Okay, so he's been there for a little bit. He
Yes.
had noticed you the first day you saw him, but he had long hair, so it was a little bit later until you saw him
Yes.
back. I will
Yeah,
say. Okay.
and actually, when there's people who sometimes know you better than you know yourself in ways at different times of your life. And I had a mentor who was actually the pastor's wife, and she knew him separately and had seen him interacting with the teens and had like in-depth conversations with him. And she knew me separately. And she was the one who came to me and said, hey, I think you guys would actually have something pretty special. You guys seem like you would be a really good match. And I was like, well, I'm kind of, and she's like, he's not that much older than you. And I'm like, I'm going away to college. I don't know how this would work. And she's like, just talk to him. So we started hanging out. Just youth group was at my parents' house, and he would stay a little bit longer, and we would play a little bit more basketball and just shoot a little bit more hoops. And
Okay.
and we just kept talking, and yeah.
Did you feel it? Did you feel a spark? Did you feel something special like those nights when he would stay a little bit longer and you'd have deeper conversations? Were you like, oh, something's happening?
Yeah, I feel like from the very beginning, I knew like, oh, this is going to be, we are definitely a match, just personality wise and how we balance each other out and just the things that we talked about. I'm like, wow, we went really deep, really fast. But also I was like, but I'm 18 and I'm going away to college.
Right.
So I don't know.
Okay, so summer camp ends at 12 o'clock and you are out on a date at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. And our first date, we went ice skating. We went to In-N-Out. Like, what a thing to do. It was real fancy.
It's perfect,
It was so
though.
fancy.
Yes.
And then we lived really close to a little lake, and we walked down to the lake and we just talked for hours. And that night I was like, oh man, I don't know how it's going to work with going away to school, but I feel like this could be it. In the first night, like that seems kind of crazy now. If one of my kids told me that, I'd be like, you should probably.
Right, at 18. You're like, yeah, cute.
Yeah,
but
I mean, that's 2 years away for my oldest. So I'm like, I don't know about that.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. Maybe when you know, when your heart, like God gives you those little insights into this is it.
Absolute validations. I mean,
Yeah.
like right there.
Yeah.
So how did you approach that? I'm sure you guys had such and that must have been a really fun summer together. You know what I
was
mean?
fun.
That must be like a highlight of your life that summer.
Yes. I mean, we had so much fun. And at the same time, there was this like, August, I leave. August, I leave.
So what was your guys' plan once August came? Were you committed to each other and gonna just try out this long distance relationship was it a full 4 years you were going for? Okay.
Yeah. So I did have a softball scholarship. And so, I mean, I knew like I wanted to get my degree. I wanted to play softball, and those were my goals. I was going to stick to it. Like I wasn't going to be deterred by some boy. And so, our plan was just let's date this summer. We were very committed to each other and just said, well, we'll be long distance for the school year, and then I'll just come home every summer and break. So that was our original plan. And then he switched it up. So
now I know his version why, and I'll give you guys, if you haven't, again, listened to his episode, I'll give you the quick recap. His recollection of this is that very early on in your college life, you called him maybe once or twice, and you had become very good friends with a guy in one of your classes. And that you were telling Will that, oh, this guy's in a long distance relationship too. He knows how hard it is. You know how lonely I can get. And Will was like, never speak to him again. I'm moving out there. And that was his motivation to like not lose you.
Oh,
so he literally packed up eventually and moved out to San Diego to meet you.
Yeah.
To not let another lonely man snatch you up.
I don't remember any of that.
You don't?
I know. I don't remember that at all. I do remember calling him. I remember having an argument because the softball and the baseball team were super close, and he was like, no, you can't go hang out with the baseball team. I'm like, no, the softball team hangs out with the baseball team. I don't know what you're talking about. So I remember that. But now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, they're what? Yes, I do remember. But I wouldn't have thought that was necessarily like, what pushed him that way.
23 years later, or however, right? How long, that is what he still
that is
remembers.
So funny. Yeah. He, when you have gone, like, I was the one who left. I was the one with all these new experiences. And so it was a lot probably easier for me. For him, he's in his same routines, same place, but without me. And to me, I was, I had left. So I wouldn't say I was living it up, but I was living a different life than we had come to know. So yeah, he came to get me for Christmas vacation, and we were driving back to Arizona, and he was like, what would you feel like if I came back to school with you in January? And I was like, well, yeah, you have to take me back to school. And he goes, no, I mean like as a student also. I was like, well, that would be great, but that's not possible. He's like, well, I did apply and I got in. So
okay, yeah. But you guys had just started dating in maybe June or July for summer camp, right? So June or July, we're not even a full year in, and
not
now
even
he's
a full
telling
year in. You guys, this sounds crazier than it really
crazy. And I want to know your honest feeling. Were you like, oh my gosh, or were you like, this is amazing?
No, I was more like, this is amazing, because yes, it was fine being long distance, but you miss the person that you love, and so it was better once he moved over there.
Can you imagine doing all that? Being in a relationship, a long distance relationship with somebody you don't know that much, and actually contemplating whether it would work or not if you did not have God at the foundation of your relationship.
Yeah.
How much, when it comes to trust, especially, and all that, how much was God being at the foundation of your and Will's relationship a factor in surviving it?
Yeah. I think that's true, because when you have a common belief and a common foundation, like that's what you're building off of. And so like all of our conversations where you have Christ as the center, I'm like, well, you can trust me because like I'm committed to Christ. I know what the Bible says about relationships, and even though we weren't married, we still had that same like thought of, if you are committed to somebody, then you honor them and you honor, biblical principles, and you don't go looking elsewhere when you're committed to someone. So
it's a gift,
to
have that young in both of you, not just one of you, but both of you.
Yeah. So we were long distance again my senior year of college, but we were also engaged by then. So I think it was a different feeling the second time around being long distance.
So did you know he was going to propose? Had you guys had all the conversations about family life and starting, officially committing your life to each other?
So we had talked about proposal, talked about like being proposed, like being engaged our senior year of college, or my senior year of college. But we were getting down to me leaving for school, and I'm like, he still hasn't. We've been on some amazing dates this summer. We've been like why hasn't he proposed? What, this is so odd. And then the weekend before I left, he spoke at our church and he pulled me up on stage, which if you know me, I'm not a huge stage person, and pulled me up on stage and proposed in front of the whole church.
He did that? Oh my gosh. Were your parents there?
Yes. Actually, once I got up on stage, so I didn't know, I had no clue that that's what he was going to do. But once I was on stage, I looked out at the congregation and it was like all of our family and friends were in the very back. And then I was like, oh, I know what's happening now.
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh, that's so cool.
I know. It was fun.
Wow,
It was
he
fun.
gotcha. What a surprise.
I know. Good thing I said yes.
He must have known, right? Maybe that was his plan. He's like, she has to say yes.
She has to say yes
She
in
knew.
front of the congregation.
Okay, so you guys do college. You finished college here. Was it here at Point Loma? You stayed here?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so does he move out? Does he stay out here? You said you were doing long distance again.
Yeah. So,
Or had he gone back to Arizona and that's where you ended
Yeah.
up? Okay.
so he had gone back to Arizona for a church in Phoenix.
And what was his role at the church at this point? Was he a youth pastor
He was
still?
a youth pastor.
Okay. And what did you want to do after college and leaving softball? What was your plan next for you? Aside from getting married, what about you personally?
So I had gotten my business degree and I had gotten with an emphasis in, with a minor in finance and then a concentration in design. I was all over the place.
Oh.
I got take as many classes as you possibly can, whatever you're interested in.
Practical and creative?
Yes.
Just calling it all the
Yeah,
rest. Okay.
basically. And so one of my coaches, he was a loan officer and he was able to coach and be a loan officer. And I was like, I like the flexibility of that. And so I actually, when I graduated, I thought, oh, I'll go into finance or as a loan officer. So that's where I kind of started to pursue or to go into like accounting stuff.
So when did the call to get in ministry jump into your heart?
Yeah. So right out of college, I actually got a job doing loans for Wells Fargo. And I worked in their loan office for just over a year. Will and I had moved up to Prescott and we're at a lovely church up there. And he was the youth pastor. After about a year and a half, they wanted to move him from the youth pastor to the young adults pastor. But they didn't want to shake up the youth group because they had already been shaken up a year previously. And so they had come to me and were like, would you ever consider being the youth pastor? And I was like, I love helping. I love helping with Will. I was at all the events. Like when you're when your partner's in ministry, you just kind of, you adopt ministry also. And so I loved those kids. I didn't really love being a loan officer. And sometimes I feel like you are called to ministry because somebody recognizes something in you and you're fulfilling a need too. And so I was like, well, let me see what this would look like and feel like. Let's talk to Will about it too. And he was on board and we just loved that church up there and wanted it to grow and wanted it to be, we had already come to really love those kids. And so I said yes. And so I was there I was a youth pastor for 5 years there, 6 years there.
Was this the fun, you know how kids always throw fun surprises your way when you're trying to manage and control them? Was this the time in your life? I remember you telling me a story one time we were talking about having to take kids to, I think, a camp. It might have been in the mountains or something and someone got hurt.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I feel like you, as a youth pastor, you have to be prepared. Like you're prepared for like hard conversations with people. You're prepared for all of the fun part of like, it is fun. Like to get kids to want to be at church, love church. Like you want to make it fun. You want to make it a place where they want to be. Camp is a huge part of that. And so we had gone to a winter camp, and yeah, it was one of the scariest, maybe the most scary thing that's ever happened, is watching a child that you love and are responsible for, that parents have given you permission to like watch their children. And he went off of a sled jump, and I had just turned to one of the other leaders and said, I feel like that jump is getting a little, like out of control, where it was at first, it was just a little jump. The more you did it, the bigger it got. And sure enough, just as he went over, he came off, and I can still picture where it looks like he did not break his neck. He was okay, but he was still on the ground unconscious and I had to hold his neck in place for like 45 minutes as we waited for the ambulance. It was the most terrifying thing, but God has put a hedge of protection over him. And while he did have a concussion, everything else was okay.
And you're in your young 20s,
yes,
right?
Young 20s. I think I was like,
neck.
Well, it was before kids, so I must have been 23.
Yeah.
So,
and you go through something like that. How did that whole experience though, like strengthen you as a youth pastor, as a leader,
Yeah. I think when you go through something like that and the kids watch you go through that too, there is a lot of there's little moments where they trust more and more, and you gain their trust and you gain their respect. And I feel like that was a moment where them just seeing one that I prayed the whole time, and I was calm, and just they saw that, and I feel like it kind of gave them, and they saw how much I cared for this child, that I feel like it just brought a closeness to the community and the group that wasn't there before.
Yeah. There's God showing up to use a situation, for his good in just the little ways that he can. So you do that for 5 years, and then what's next for you and Will?
So we were called to start a church in San Diego, in North Park specifically. And so we moved our little family. We had a 3-year-old, and I was 36 weeks pregnant with our second when we decided this is a great time to plant a church in
uproot and move your entire life away from your family.
When you're 36 weeks pregnant.
With a 3-year-old, you must have had
a 3-year-old,
perfect three-nager, angel of a child. He must have been amazingly cooperative.
He actually, I will say, Corbin as a toddler was pretty darn cute and easy.
Awesome.
But yeah, moving away from family and what we had known as a very stable, reliable church, reliable income, stable, just uprooting and planting. That's a whole different beast of a ministry.
So explain to someone who maybe has had a calling on their life and they didn't know if they should take that leap of faith to jump in and pursue and go for it because of all the uncomfortable pieces that come along with that. How did you know that this was the calling to pursue at this time and just go for it?
I feel like there's a few things, a few confirmations along the way. One, I'm pretty risk averse. And so the fact that I feel like whenever there have been big decisions in my life, how God works in me is he gives me a sense of peace. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense in just in what we're doing. And when Will first mentioned it and was like, we're going to move, I've been talking to these people. I think this church is being put on our heart in San Diego. And I'm like, oh, okay. What does that look like? And he's like, I don't know yet. is there supporters? He's like, I don't know yet. With all of these questions, the sense of peace that I felt was like, I feel like this is actually what we're supposed to do, even though none of the pieces have been put together yet. And so then it's just a series of like, once you have that peace, knowing like, okay, this door is opening. Okay, wow, this door opened. One of the biggest pieces was, where do you live in San Diego? It's hard. We came in at a time where there was no housing, and the doctor actually told us, like, you cannot move past 36 weeks. We won't release you to move. And so we had come out to San Diego, and we had found like the doors were opening, like with donors and finding a place of like just in the city where we wanted to be. Doors were opening. The team was coming together. But the biggest puzzle piece was we have to find somewhere to live. And we had been trying to find a place online. And every time I called, it was already gone. And so, which is so frustrating, because you're like, we think this is it. Like, we feel this peace. We have felt like the doors are opening, but there's this huge hurdle. Like, how are we going to get by that? Mm-hmm. And so we came out to San Diego, and it was like closed door after closed door of finding places to live. And as we were leaving North Park, as we turned down a street that was it was a one-way street. We turned on accident down this one-way street right as a lady was coming out to put a for rent sign out on the front yard. And we pulled over the car. We're like, when is it going to be for rent? She's like, well, next week. It's available. And so we said, can we talk to you? Can we look at it? And she's like, yeah, come on in. So she talked to us, and right there, she was like, we told her, we're like, we have nothing to verify our income. But we could pay first month, last month, and a deposit. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you can do that right now. I'm like, we can write a check right now.
Yes.
And she was like, okay, I'll take a chance on you guys.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So it was our last like hurdle, and that little house ended up being like, oh, I could cry. That little house ended up being like in the heart of North Park, where it was like walkable. We ended up having like our first gatherings in that little home. It had the perfect backyard where we set up, like we had church there, like we had Christmas Eve services there. It was just a perfect little house, little place, like, but with a great setup. So
a little house that did so much.
Yeah, it was great.
And I know that this next part of your in-Will's life had so much beauty to it, but then there's also pain. Mm-hmm. And I know that there were a lot of people involved, and they all have their own stories. So it's other people's story to tell, and it's not something you want to get too much into. But how long did you planted a church, and you ran it up until a certain point. About how long was that?
Yeah, it was about 8 years. The church. Yeah, that Will was the lead pastor of the church, and then I did whatever was needed at the church.
Yeah.
So I was the children's director at some point, hospitality, ran small groups, hosted in our home. So for 8 years. And you're right. I look back at those 8 years, and there's so much beauty in those 8 years of planting and just seeing how God can work, how God brings community together. Will and I laugh because we were like, how many weddings did we attend and were a part of in those 8 years? And that he married people, because we had a really young, North Park is a young flourishing area. And we pulled also from Point Loma. So there was a lot of young people from there. But yeah, so we did a lot of, you see the most beautiful things in the church in ministry when you're kind of working from the ground up. There's a lot of work with people. You're like creating culture the whole time. It's not established, right? So you're creating it the whole time and you're trying to establish a culture. And then just when you're in ministry, you see the hardest things in ministry too. So, and you're right. That's part of their other people's story. But, you see the hard and the disheartening, and it can really do a number on your own spiritual walk if you're not being grounded in Christ the whole time. So
you guys got to the point 8 years later where you had to walk away, and was it right after then? Did you find Coastline? Was that the next step for you guys?
Yeah. So it was really cool. Out of a plant and just seeing like what it takes and the pressure that it takes on a pastor, and how sometimes pastors don't have a community of pastors that are around them. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things, Will's current ministry was formed out of what he experienced. And so over that span of time, he kept feeling like pastors need pastors. Like pastors need a shepherd and somebody to come alongside of them and share in the hard parts of ministry. And he was feeling a calling to be that.
So to step others. Down from leading the church and being a pastor, this was the new calling on his life.
This was the new calling of his life, was to pastor pastors and to help them to create a space where they can grow and talk and just be, I'm like, you're kind of like spiritual director / therapist / like friend, mentor. So cheerleader. Yes. Whatever it requires at that time. And so he stepped out of the church, and it was the first time in our married life that we weren't pastors at a church. And so our kids actually had a really hard time because they had only known that church as their church, and they had only been a part of it. They were pastors' kids. Like, how did they, and we had a third by that time. They had grown up in that church. And so they had a hard time because we were like, well, we're going to try this church. We're going to try that church. And we kind of found it life-giving to try these different places. They had a really hard time. And they were at the point where they're like, we don't want to go to church anymore. And so we let our strongest child, our oldest child, he was the one who kind of put his foot down and said, I don't want to keep just trying churches. I want to go to Yaya and Poppy's church. My parents had moved out here, and we're like, okay, we'll go to their church to appease, to kind of like have a bridge during this time. But Coastline is that church, but it's far from our house. But our kids fell in love with Coastline very quickly, and Corbin came running out, big smile on his face after the first time, and he said, I like Yaya and Poppy's church. I want to come back. And so we came back, and then same experience, and they all just loved it. And I was like, well, can you listen to Pastor Aaron? Are you guys on the same page? And he's like, yeah, theologically we are like there. And he's like, I respect him. And yes. So we're like, it's okay that it's far from our house. We'll make a point of making this our home church.
I want to commend you on that, because for a couple of things, some of us have strong-willed children and we don't know how to funnel their energy. We don't know how to direct that type of attitude and that type of boldness and stuff, all the things. So for you to see the need, that it was so important to have this, that is Christ, keep Christ as your foundation in your family. And if he's the one putting his foot down, even going to a church, unless it's this one, and you're like, okay, we'll do that. with it being so far, we all have the struggles of trying to get the kids up in time for church because there's always spiritual warfare to like make a kid too tired or mad or they don't want to go and all this stuff, right? It's always kind of crazy getting out of the house for Sunday morning. Add on the extra mileage that you guys do. But just being faithful in that, I just want to commend you on that because it's not easy. That is by no means not easy just because of the distance, just for so other many reasons. But also, Will and Pastor Aaron have different teaching styles, right? When Will gets up and speaks, I sometimes need to write notes down and go, but what does this word mean? And all these things, right? Because he's so deep and he's so intellectual, and it's impressive to see him stand up there. And then Aaron gets up and he uses big words. He explains them right there a lot of the time for you. You know what I mean? But very, very different styles. But you're right. At the end of the day, the theology there, very similar. And I had wondered actually before learning about Will and what he did and what his ministry was, I had just my own concerns for Pastor Aaron as far as like, you go through a lot and the whole church puts the weight of their shoulders and their world on you to come from you for therapy. Who's taking care of you? Who's taking care? I have Will. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God. I didn't know there's a pastor for pastors. So also I want to commend you on even allowing Will or pushing Will, being along his side to pursue that as his next journey, which again came with a whole new round of unanswered questions. The future, right?
You know, for somebody who really craves like stability and stuff, I feel like a lot of our life has revolved around entrepreneurship in ways that I'm like, wow, maybe I'm more bold and daring, or I just actually have a very strong faith. And that's where it comes from, because the flesh part of me is like, no, this is a bad idea. Like, you want to create something new. But the like faith-filled part of me is more like, yes, this is a good idea. This is a need that is met. And I will say too, one of the things you said, yes, Will helps Pastor Aaron, but also like he's an anomaly in that he surrounds himself with, like, he has learned that mentors are so important. And so he has done a good job, like surrounding himself with people who like pour into him too, which some pastors don't have that. Right. Which is hard. And so that's where Will gets to step in.
Right.
No.
So then Will, you guys find your church, your kids love it. Your parents are here. Will finds his new calling. But what about you? You have given up finance. You are no longer the youth pastor at the church, and then all the other things at your other church that you were, right? You were just filling in all the needs. What was your calling? What was your feeling when you came to Coastline? Did you want to dive back in, or did you need a minute to just attend and not serve? Yeah.
So I definitely, like, after planting and being a lot of different roles and going through some of the painful parts of planting, I needed a hot minute. I needed to be able to just sit back and attend and just like be fed. I hadn't just sat and like listened. I mean, when your husband's speaking, it's a little bit different because you're learning from him. Like, I always learn from him, but you're also like, you've heard bits and pieces of his sermon as he was doing it throughout the week. And so it's more of like watching a piece of artwork come together at the end. And so it's very different to just be able to like sit and attend and let your kids be fed by somebody else and not have to be that for them. And so it was good. When we first came to Coastline, I was like, you know what? Don't tell anybody that we were pastors. Let's just like sit back for a little bit.
Coming in under that radar.
Yeah. Yes. But whenever you're like in ministry and your heart is for God and for the church and for the kingdom, like, very quickly, once you have kind of just sat for a little bit, you get moved into action. And so very quickly I was like, okay, I'm ready again. Where do you have me, God? And it wasn't, I was doing financial stuff on the side for my job. And so I didn't have to jump into being on staff or ministry. I just got to serve where I was like, where I felt most called to. And so I started teaching the 2nd and 3rd grade class.
And then how many years was it until that you had been going here until Kat and Josiah had to step away and there was that new, need to find a new children's pastor?
So I served in the kids department for, I think, 3.5 years. Yeah, it was about 3.5 years or more. Actually, no, it was more, 4.5 years. Before, and I had taught, actually I started at kindergarten, 1st grade. I started with Ashlyn. And so I started kindergarten, 1st grade, had moved up to 2nd and 3rd grade with her. And I just love teaching, and I love teaching kids the Bible and pointing them towards Jesus. And so I got to just kind of volunteer. I'd show up on Sunday. It was prepared. The lesson was prepared for me. I just taught it best I could. And then I left. But as Kat and Josiah were stepping away, they had come to me and said, would you be interested that you have the gifts, you have the passion for this ministry and for the kids. Would you be interested in interviewing, because there's quite the interview process here. So would you be interested in interviewing? And I actually had a job that I really, really loved. And so at first I was like, I don't know if I want to give up that job. But the more that I thought about it, the more I talked to Will about it and prayed about it, I felt more stirred towards actually what is the most important thing. Like I was reminded what it took for us to come here was my own kids loving the church and walking out and having with a smile on their face. And I was like, I want to help other families have that same experience at church. So the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, I would love to say yes to being the children's director here.
And what are some things you get to see on those Sunday mornings when we drop our kids off to you that we miss or we don't get to see when our kids are sitting with you and your staff and learning about Jesus? What are some just cool highlights that stand out to you? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like through your lens that we miss out on.
Well, one, we have a really long hallway from where parents usually drop off their kids to the auditorium. There's a super long hallway. And what brings me some of the most joy is standing at the door of the auditorium, watching these kids skip or run. Like kids can't just walk normally. It's so funny, especially when they're excited. They're like running or skipping or like hitting the walls. But watching their joy, like kids just have such a natural joy and happiness and contagion. Like watching them come into church, that is so beautiful. And then we create different prayer moments for them. And so I love sitting back and watching them. Sometimes they're wiggly and they don't take it necessarily seriously, but we're creating that time and that space for them to listen to God and to be just mindful of what he might be saying to them or what they want to tell God. But sometimes you see when a kid has something on their heart and they are writing away on their little prayer card, and they can either hand it to a leader or they can roll it up and they can put it in the wall as kind of like a silent prayer request. And I love seeing, like, do they want to share this or do they want to keep it between them and God? And so those moments are pretty special. And then just being in a classroom, and when you're teaching and you're asking them questions, we ask a lot of like wonder questions to them. Like, I wonder what it would have been like to walk with Jesus. Like, what do you think their feet how dirty do you think their feet got? Like, just to put them in the story and to watch them think about just that time, or like, what do you think I wonder what it was like to witness a miracle like that.
You must get some of the funniest answers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Your son. He's the best. But they just have such beautiful imaginations and they're so good. We don't give kids enough credit for like putting things together, like how they can draw from, oh yeah, I remember in this story from the Old Testament. And I'm like, yes, that's the connection. And so seeing those kind of like aha moments in them, or like, where have you heard this phrase before? And they know, like, oh, in the beginning was the word. Wait, in the beginning before, so they can create those connections, which is pretty special and fun to see.
I do have to say, I just want to sing your praises for a moment. I have a similar story in the sense that the thing that brought me to this church was my kids. And that's just it. I just needed to find a place that would pour into them and just had that feel that Coastline had. And I couldn't put my finger on it, right? I just knew when I came. I just knew. And to see how it's grown in the time I've been here. Monica was running it when I first came. Then Kat took over. And then when Kat left, I did not know you. I didn't know you at all. You knew my kids.
I was going to say, I knew your kids. I knew.
I would just drop off. But at the same time, I was a person who would kind of just drop them off, talk a little bit, and then leave. I have done better at getting to actually plant my feet in this church and spread my wings and meet this
small
amazing
groups
community,
are great
right?
For that. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. And at the same time, you came into my small group. I was like, oh, cool. I'll get to know Amy. But aside from me just getting to have this amazing relationship with you and fall in love with you, what you have done for my kids and for every other child that is under your care and your watch in this building, whether it's Sunday, whether it's camps, whatever, Amy, you have an anointing on you. You have the hand of God just absolutely blessing you in everything you do. And it comes with ease. It's not, you're not trying, it's who you are. It flows through your veins. It flows out of you. And the way my kids will randomly recite knowledge or do random things throughout the week that they didn't always do before. And I'm like, I didn't teach you that. It is a direct reflection of the work God is using you for in this church. Like, I am so thankful you said yes, that you had to walk away from something you love. That breaks my heart because I know you've already sacrificed a lot for the kingdom, but it's always for so much good. It's always for so much better. And, that was another reason I asked you to be the one to baptize my kids, because of the way you have helped them fall in love with Jesus. And even you, little things you do, giving them a little children's devotional. It's what we pick them up from school, and Summer and Kern open their devotionals, and that's what we read and talk about on the way home. And then they started doing, Summer, I noticed when you're saying the I wonders, Summer has started to do some things. Oh, can you imagine like this or what, right? And I'm like, I'm connecting the dots now. Like what you are doing is going out into their real lives in the real world.
That's so cool.
We're so lucky to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
We're so lucky for what Will is doing behind the scenes. And I am just going to say, do you remember what you told me?
Oh, no.
Us one time in small group? There was a series that Will was helping Pastor Aaron. He, for small groups where he would take message notes and put them in, put them into Bible study notes for us. And sometimes the questions were so deep. They were so deep. And we're like, we need a translator for this question. And you're like, oh, it was Will's week. And we're like, do you remember when I was saying something along the lines of, when you have these crazy conversations with Will, like, can you follow? Do you remember what you said?
No. What did I say?
It was the funniest thing. You were like, I just look at him and I'm like, you're so cute.
You're so cute. You're so cute. No.
And I just love that.
Yep.
You guys balance each other so well.
We do. We balance each other well.
Yeah. So all that to say, just thank you for joining us on Coastline Connections too, because this is the point of this podcast, is at least season 1, getting really to know the people who are running this amazing place that is Coastline, our leaders, the people who we are handing our kids off to, what's going on behind the scenes, and just who you are in general. Yeah. So thank you for stepping a little bit out of your comfort zone. You're very good at it. You're always so good up on that stage, and you're very good today.
Well, thank you.
So keep doing
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, that is a wrap on Coastline Connections for this week. Amanda and Aaron will be back for a new edition of Grace-Based Living next week. And so we'll see you Sunday.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us on the Coastline podcast today. And let me tell you, if you ever have a question for myself or my wife or any of our guests, or would love to hear a show about or a question about, email us at podcast@coastlinechurch.org, and we'd love to respond to you. Now, before you sign out, please like, subscribe, or follow whatever device you are on or platform you are following us with today so that you never miss an episode. I'm grateful to get to do this together. Thank you for joining us.